Okay. Anybody here been dealing with cancer? Huh? Okay. Let's.
I've dealt with cancer side effects, but not cancer directly.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Cool.
Dealing with it. Hi, I'm dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
I'm dealing with it right now, and it has shrunk more than 60%. It's a tumor, breast cancer tumor.
What are you doing?
A combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
I got a xylophone and played that set the timer for 15 minutes since it dissolves tumors in 14 minutes. And also, I did it in combination with a friend who was doing a practice that comes from the Real Teachings of Jesus Christ book.
Mm-hmm.
And so the two of us combined, and my intention was to blow away the breast cancer surgeon, who is also a Reiki master, but she is a surgeon. And they wanted to do chemo, radiation, and surgery because it was more than 1 inch or 1 centimeter or something. And when I read that that's the treatment, and that they take out lymph nodes, and if they need to take out more, then they can even take out a nerve in your arm and make your arm numb permanently, I just got so mad. I just went, no, they are not touching my breast. They're not doing that to my body. And so I've also been going to somebody who does muscle testing, which was a gift from the breast cancer surgeon. There's people that she has on a list that you can go to, whether they're local or they're not. And so I chose this man who does acupuncture, and he went to the Barbara Brennan School. He also does the muscle testing, and he's a chiropractor, and he's very gifted. And so I've been asking him questions like, which one of all of these different things could help me reduce and dissolve this cancer? So he was muscle testing my body, and my body told him which different things. Now my voice could do it also, and I have facilitated 2 people with lung cancer that dissolved, and 2 men with prostate cancer that dissolved. One with food and some sound. And so one of the things that I could do that my body said yes was my voice, but it said, but the xylophone would be even better. So that's what I'm doing. And
Cool.
so what he said last time I went was, in the spiritual, it's gone, but the physical needs to catch up. And it was
Cool.
more than 60% gone. So.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, you know, last year I got diagnosed with a blood clot from my hip all the way down to my ankle, right? And so immediately, the first thing, and we'll be talking about this later as one of the treatments, is just assume that it was just going to be gone, right? It's no big deal. It's going to be gone, right? And my friend said that she actually had a fibroid, and she just visualized it gone and visualized going to the doctor and their mouth falling open, because fibroids don't go away. And that's exactly what happened. And it's exactly what happened with my blood clots. They're completely gone now, right? And the doctors are like, holy moly, right? You don't even have to be on on blood thinner medicine anymore, right? So I think that's number one, is just it's the energy. It's just totally an energy thing, right?
We were also doing that. We were visualizing it just being gone. So,
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back when we get to the treatments too. Thank you for sharing. So, there are so many different types of cancer and so many different causes for cancer, course, nobody knows for sure, but you know, it seems like, you know, ultimately what we're going to talk about later is actual frequencies for exploding cancer cells, right? And the research that can be done on that, right? And so that will be different when you're looking at like blood cancers versus solid tumor cancers, right? Um, mhm. No, Jacqueline? No, no, neither. So it's like, you know, when you're looking at different types of cancer, does anybody have any thoughts as to how we might approach things differently? I mean, one thing I thought about is, you know, if someone has fourth stage cancer, that's kind of like a bigger deal than, you know, just one tumor, right? And that might be treated differently, you know, or, I mean, any thoughts on different types of cancer as to how it might affect our approach?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Depending on what you want to do, the higher the frequency, the more it breaks things up. And light is just another higher frequency. And I've, in my research, equated the different light to the same notes as sound. It's just a
Mhm.
higher frequency. And if you use the high frequencies, you can break things up. It's like the opera singer breaking the glass. So if you
Cool.
want to break up
Yeah,
a tumor, you'd use the really high frequencies, and then the lower frequencies are what heal.
yeah. As we'll talk about in science, the way you destructive resonance. I was a physics major at UC Berkeley, and we'll get back to our question that I was asking here in a second because this is completely different than what I just asked. But when we uh, in science, destructive resonance, it's not about a higher or lower frequency. It's about the frequency of the object. You actually find the
Yes.
frequency of the cancer, and then you can explode it that way. And we're going to be talking about some research that we're doing that I'm really excited about, actually, when we'll find all the frequencies. Yeah. So, okay, so let me ask this question again. Anybody have any thoughts about different, I mean, there's a different people were from the papers that the students did in the degree program. They said, of course, there's different types of cancer for kids versus adults, and of course, we're going to, you know, do different types of treatments for the kids and adults. Any other types of cancer? Maybe there's not really. I can't really think of any major difference, right? Any thoughts?
Um, yes, years ago, when I was in my 20s, my first husband got cancer of the voice box,
Uh-huh.
and he had this hoarse voice for about 3 months, and then finally went to a doctor, and he was told that he had cancer of the voice box, and
Yeah.
they wanted to take out the voice box. And at the time, I didn't know anything about healing, and that it could be genetic because his aunt had one of those things in her voice box, those machines that you talk through.
Mhm.
And he was in his early 30s, and he just freaked out, and he went right away to a health food store and bought a book called How to Get Well. And he also bought B15 from Russia from under the counter because it was illegal to buy, but it boosts the immune system. So I read the book and realized, oh my God, we're eating nothing but junk food and dead food. No wonder. So I totally changed our diet to nothing but fruits and vegetables. I juiced him carrot, parsley, and celery juice every day. He ate the insides of peach pits and apple seeds, which is B17, I think. Anyway, his voice box grew back and the cancer went away. And he was fine for the next 30 or 40 years, whatever it was.
Cool, cool. I would say that definitely that I just was working with someone for 2 years who had throat cancer, and you know, so I was really adamant about getting her to be able to make the sound of how she was feeling. To really, I mean, so I was really focused on the voice and getting her to make powerful sounds, and it was really helping because you know I was really because you know I had her do the sound of power like whoa, right, really loud, and she was like whoa, she couldn't do it, right? So I had her practicing. So I would think for cancer of different organs, we would actually work with differently on by focusing on the energy of that organ, right? Uh, which, lung and throat and voice box would be about self-expression, right? So, so I think that seems like really would affect the way we approach it. Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Different types? Okay. I mean, once we get into actually using frequencies to explode cancer cells, then I think it's going to really be very important to look at the different types in detail as to how they propagate. Also, I'm really interested in, the research on cancer and exactly the different proteins that they're working with to stop the reproduction process of the cancer. I mean, there's all different ways of that they're approaching cancer now, other than just trying to explode it. They're looking at the mechanisms of the way the cell works, and so that could give us some really detailed information on how to approach things with specific frequencies as well. I actually I was hoping she would show up, but I don't see her. I about 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I had a woman come for a treatment to find her home note, and it turns out she was the head of cancer research for just about all of Oregon at Kaiser, and she. So we started talking about a lot of different avenues to go. And the thing we can mention later also is the fact that Kaiser, since they are an insurance company as well, they're really interested in reducing costs. So there's no better company like that to work with to actually get new treatments in, whereas other hospitals, are still tied to the pharmaceuticals more. But we'll talk more about that later as we get to it. Okay, so that's the different types. So when we look at the general approach, let's see, here we got some types here. Oh, actually, we talked about this in previous class. Child versus tumor versus systemic, curable versus so-called non-curable. Because of course, if someone's thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to die, then there's a different approach, right? Or, we can also get to the point, it's like if someone is ready to die, then we can help them be at peace around that. So that's a tricky little area there, but that could be a different approach. Are they open to being cured? That's a good one. They believe sound healing can help. If their belief system is really important as well, right? Okay. So for the conceptual frameworks as to how we might approach this, the number one thing that you can always do with sound for any issue is get people to a place of peace, right? It's the whole basis of sound healing, right? Consistent, stable tones, whether it's vowels or crystal bowls or rhythms or Tibetan bowls, right? Or just about any sound healing instrument, except for rhythms would be consistent, stable rhythms, right? And especially sounds that ultimately go to the home note of the key of the song, which is more peaceful, and fade out slowly, right? When something fades, especially like something like a crystal bowl that fades over like 5 minutes, it leaves people in a profoundly peaceful place. Also taking a rhythm and slowing it down until it's slower and slower and slower. Keep going, right? It's good. Anytime you take any type of energy and do a curve where you take the dynamics and make them mellower and mellower and mellower, I find that's I've learned that that's way more effective than just mellow sounds. Mellow sounds are good, like a whole atmosphere of mellow, peaceful sounds. Still peaceful, it's great, right? But when you do a dynamic curve where you bring it down more and more to more and more peace, the body goes with it even more, right? So peace is the deal. I mean, often if people just go to peace, their immune system works way better. This is proven as well. All the organs go into alignment, more creative, and it's a portal to other dimensions where you're one with the universe, and there's indescribable universal love there, which can be really the most powerful of all to connect to source, right? So the obvious treatment is peace. Get people to a place of peace. And it's interesting because with the people I've worked with cancer, sometimes I heard this one woman, she said, I'm actually really at peace. I'm doing really well. The problem is all the people around me are freaking out. So it's often the big problem is, the energy that people bring to it. It was interesting when I had the blood clot, I didn't want to tell anybody, right? Because I didn't want anybody to go, oh, that sucks. That's so bad, right? I'm like, that's not the energy I'm running, right? I'm at peace. I'm seeing it like, God, this is a great lesson I'm learning. It's a wonderful lesson, right? It's just perfect, right? I don't want to go into this, oh, it sucks, energy. So I didn't want to tell anybody. It was really cool. I did tell my friend Bev in Mount Shasta, who runs the crystal room, and she immediately goes, I just see it completely gone. No big deal. It's gone. I'm like, I love you, right? Right. So that's sometimes you have to help people deal with the people around them who are freaking out, right? So they can still be at peace in the midst of all the people around them that are freaking out. Right? So that's the most basic approach, right? And this is the integrative therapy approach. We'll get to the medical approach later. This is where we're just simply using sound to get you to peace, okay? The other area that you can work with is releasing, and if anybody has any comments, just unmute and jump in. You don't have to raise your hand, on any of this there. Just interrupt me, right? So we can get in there. Okay. Oh, keep the chat up going here so I can see. Oh, nothing in the chat. That's cool. Okay. The next one is to deal with the emotions around it, right? And you can deal with the emotions that they're having now, which is often fear. And once you get them to a place of peace, they might be open, based on the input questions, to focus on the emotions that caused the cancer in the first place. A very excellent question is to say, a lot of people know what's behind a physical disease emotionally. How about you? Is there any emotion that you feel is the cause of this? And I had one person who had cancer, and she goes, oh yeah, I know exactly what the cause is. I'm like, oh, cool. She said, my doggie died last year, and she just started bawling. I'm like, holy moly, we're dealing with grief here, right? So it's really cool if people are open to talking about it. Some people aren't open, and it might be anger, right? So anytime you get into the emotional realm, of course, you have to be really careful, really careful, and go step by step. Never push. Always see how open they are to doing that. And then there's all types of exercises you can do for releasing emotions. I mean, in our classes here, we've got like 8 of them that we do when you can make the sound of the emotion with the intention of releasing it. You can make the sound of the emotion and slowly transform it into beauty. You can make the sound that the part of the body that's holding the emotion wants you to make to release it. So you don't make the sound of the emotion, you work on the part of the body that's holding the emotion and make a sound for it. And it could be intense or it could be beautiful, breaking up or harmonizing, right? And then you can also go to the next level where you call in higher beings like Tom Kenyon. It's like, let the higher beings make a sound through you to clear it. Or just go straight to source. Let source make the sound through you to clear it. Right? Get out of the way. And then you can also, the really good one I like to do is have them make the sound of love and send that sound of love to it. Right? This is really cool. Now, in this area, often people aren't ready to make sound. So you sometimes have to go through a whole process of getting them, which could even take a month or so, of getting them comfortable with making sound. And the easiest way to do that, I found, is call and response. Just make this sound back. Okay. Okay, make this sound. Ah! Ah! Okay, let's do a little gibberish. Blah, 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 blah. And they finally go blah, 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 blah. And you start playing, and just have fun with it, right? We've done this with children as well. And then within a month, people are like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Right. Now you're making headway. You're getting the emotions to flow again. And then you can start working on these more advanced techniques of releasing emotions with sound, with the voice. I mean, really, most basic is just get people to start doing any vowel, right? Any vowel, because then at least there you're getting them to go to a place of peace. Any comments or thoughts on this section, releasing emotions around it?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So what I noticed is, and this is really new to me, is that if people find an emotion in themselves, they get stuck in. What I do is ask them to use their own sound to get rid of that emotion in a loving way, and it works. I'm really surprised about that.
That people actually do it.
Yeah, but also that they feel the power. It has to do with power. That
cool.
So in a way you give them a tool. So I did once. I did with somebody who's really in her head, and she kept stuck in it. And I did give her about 8 sessions. And after the 8th session, she got back here, and so I asked her if she could make her own sound, which she did after eight sessions. And I could see the relief that she noticed that she could move it away herself.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Really
you.
good. Wow. That's really, I think that there is a huge part of empowerment, right? We had this guy that used to work at the school that was really good at getting rid of cancer with the voice, with his voice. And he would just scream like full on power. He was a medical intuitive as well, but his voice was like, whoa, for like an hour, right? Really powerful. And I had him work on me for different things. And afterwards, I just felt this sense of power, even though I wasn't making the sound. he was doing this really powerful sound, full on power, and it gave me this power, right? It's kind of like watching sports or dance or watching, even Cirque du Soleil, right? It's like when they're doing that, it's like you get that energy in your body, right? And so that really gave me a insight that it's really important for them to overcome that fear, because number one thing that in any issue, but especially in cancer, is to overcome the fear, right? Because the fear, I think, will kill people as much as anything. Do you have something you want to share, Susie? No? Oh, you're just a mute. Okay. So,
Yes.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been doing, healing work for about 28 years, and I've had women on my table who had been sexually abused and molested, and even men sexually abused and molested, and people with, there was a woman with breast cancer, and I used to try to get them to make the sounds. The way I was originally taught, you find a place that hurts and you just really work it with your hands. But it was so physically painful that I found myself at one point just starting to make the sounds for them. And then I would feel whenever they would let go, my hand would kind of melt into that spot where the blockage was.
Mhm,
And so I've done that screaming myself,
mhm.
and also helped them, if they were ready, if they had been sexually abused, to do their own screaming. And it just made huge differences for those who allowed themselves to be able to do that.
Cool. I have a technique that I really like that I use a lot, especially with cancer. And that is, I say, okay, imagine you have a tiger attacking you, and you have the power with your voice to stop it in its tracks. You're not going to hurt the kitty. You're just setting boundaries. And this is really about setting boundaries of all the things that are causing the cancer, all the things around you of other people that are causing issues as well. And you're just going to set boundaries, right? And so I say on three, which is always four, right? 1, 2, 3. You're going to make the sound of no, right? And let me demonstrate. Okay. So warning, everybody, warning, I'm going to get really loud. Okay. Okay. So it's like 1, 2, 3. No! Oh, woke up my kitty. And it was amazing. As I mentioned, with the woman that had throat cancer, she was like, no. I'm like, no, full power. No. Right. And so I got her to practice so she could do no, full power. I'm not going to scream it again because my kitty's right here. Okay. So, so it was really effective to really, and it's interesting also when I would do that, I could see how much in their power they were. I had someone just 2 days ago that came in for a treatment, and she was, her husband had like done almost every bad thing you can imagine. I mean, he had his own company that she didn't even know about. And I said, okay, do a sound of full empowerment. No. And she just about knocked me off the seat. It was so strong. And I'm like, holy moly, you're totally have your power in place. So we're going to say, set boundaries so that you are not affected. It's like basic Buddhism. And also even the Kabbalah, they talk about it, setting boundaries over the lower self, keeping the lower self at bay, right? So that it's not getting into these emotional entanglements, right? But being in full power. Right? So I found that's really helpful. Right. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Now you can do the exact opposite, which is just love it. send love to it. Send love to your own heart, right? I mean, often problems are because people don't have enough love in their life, right? Their heart is shut down. When your heart shuts down, everything else starts to shut down, and that can be a problem. So I have them send this soft love of sound of love to their heart. First, I have them run the energy of love to their heart, and then actually make a sound of it, and I'll help them with it. I had the one woman that she said, "I don't know what love is." I'm like, "Whoa, oh my God," right? So that can be really, and then you even send love to the cancer cells. Now, this is interesting. There's a couple of things that are really, I want to share here about this. The first is the story of Anita Morjani. Anita Morjani had fourth stage cancer. She had golf ball sized tumors all over her body. And she actually died and went into the light and then came back and was completely enveloped in universal love. And she said that she was no longer afraid of what anybody thought about her. And within 1 month, all of the tumors were completely gone. I mean, that's really telling. And that's really gives us a very clear avenue as to one way to go, right? Still in the integrative therapy department here, of simply getting people to run love, right? Any way you can get them to connect to universal love, right? Or any love. I mean, a lot of people, you say universal love and they look at you like you got two heads, right? The other way is to just have them send a sound of love to their own heart. People can handle that. Then you go, look, you've got all the love in the world right there. You're doing it. Practice that. Run that love, right? But, if people can connect to universal love, I mean, oh my God, this is really cool. We have a whole class where we do that. So I think that's, the ultimate. To be able to connect to source is really always the best. But a lot of people can't handle that. It's too woo-woo for them. Yeah. Yeah. So love is always really important. I've got the next section here is really going to the higher perspective of source, right? So that they can assume it will be gone. Like this one I really like doing is where I say, visualize that the cancer is now completely gone. I think this is the best of all the things I do. Visualize the cancer completely gone. What would it feel like if it's gone? What would your life be like? I was doing this with a woman who had fourth stage cancer, and we got really in detail where she was even doing a vision board of what it would be like with the cancer gone. And then I said, feel it. And then I said, make the sound of how it feels when the cancer is completely gone. And she was like so into it. It was great because that energy of running the cancer completely gone through your body with sound, there's nothing better because the body goes, oh, it's gone. I'm just going to heal completely, right? This is very cool. But the other aspect is to also just go, it's okay, right? So there's this woman that's in a movie called The Living Matrix that I did the soundtrack for. And it's on using information medicine, for healing. It's a very cool movie. Information for the cells and the organs and stuff and how they communicate. There's a whole science around that and morphogenetics. which are the information carriers of different parts of the body. But anyway, this woman had a brain tumor, and she was doing all types of treatments for like about 7 years, right? Including um, um, all types of meditation and stuff. And one morning she thought, she said she was at the breakfast table and she thought, God damn it, I wish this cancer were gone. And she stopped and she thought, that's a little intense. That's almost like murderous, right? It's like tension. There's a lot of tension around that. And she thought, what would be the opposite? And she thought the opposite would be complete acceptance, right? And so she said, okay, let me do that. She said, thank you for what you've taught me. She said her life is completely different. She's got all new friends. She's more grounded. Her life is actually way better. And she said, I give you permission to stay here the rest of my life. Talking to the cancer. And after 7 years, the cancer was gone in 1 month. It's like I was driving to Mount Shasta last year when I still had the blood clots, and this light being named Stormy from Texas calls up, 80 years old, and he says, I've been healing since I was 5. I was born in a lightning storm, right? A thunderstorm. And I've been healing since I was 5, and my music's really amazing. And he was like, so we started singing, like, we talked for 3 hours because I'm driving to Mount Shasta, right? And he said, okay, I'm going to do a little healing on you. And he says, okay, you're now just going to forget about it. You're just going to forget about it. And right after that, from then on, instead of worrying about healing and being really careful about what I eat, although I was still careful, but I just wasn't stressing about, doing treatments and everything, right? I was I just thought, okay, I'll just still do stuff, but I'm just not going to worry about it anymore and just forget about it. And I forgot about it. And within 3 months, the tumor, the blood clots are completely gone, right? Completely gone. And then there's this woman on America's Got Talent I want to play for you. She was just on a couple of weeks ago. She's got 4th stage cancer, right? And she wrote this song about it's okay, right? Let me play this for you. I'm really inspired by it. I've watched that a few times and just looked really closely at her energy when she's going, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Because she's not going, it's okay. It's okay, it sucks, but it's okay. She's really going, it's okay, it's okay. It's really okay. And the sound of her voice when she's saying it, right? It's just, I thought that was really important, the actual energy of it's okay. So that's the higher level again, the higher perspective. Assume that we're gone, we'll be gone, it's okay. It's all perfect. And when you start looking at, in the sessions, you can also look at, like, what are the lessons from it, right? And the lessons from cancer are just profound, right? And you can always, with any of these frameworks, you can always add sound and drive that lesson home then. you can really resonate that lesson into being, right? I mean, it seems like the number one lesson is what's important in life. And when I had the blood clots, it's like, oh my God, what's important becomes really clear. So a lot of the stuff that I was really working on was all of a sudden no big deal anymore. You drop down into a way more deep peace, right? And there's a whole books on, Jim Gordon has a book on trauma is really our greatest teacher. Right? Also, some people say that when you've had cancer, you become, as a cancer survivor, I don't even like that term, but it's like as a human being afterwards, you are actually much better at helping others heal. I have to tell you, this woman I was working on with fourth stage cancer, just a couple months ago, she had gotten to the point where she had no more pain in her lungs. We were doing treatments every week, and it was really effective. And I think we're getting some help from some higher beings as well. And she was like, "Oh my God, I feel great." And then the next day, she went in for a blood transfusion that she was scheduled for. And she actually got some blood that apparently had been not stored well, correctly. And within 10 days, she went downhill and passed. And it was really interesting because in the next week, she was hanging out in my bedroom after she passed. And I said, "Whoa, I bet you're not afraid to make sound now." Right? Because she, was having trouble with no. And this intuitive, who was actually in our class, she said, "Oh yeah, I was there helping her cross over." And she said, "She's now going to help you whenever you work on people with cancer. She's now like a helper." Cool. Any other thoughts on lessons? Like Louise Hay says, it's for deep resentment from childhood sometimes.
Hi, can I speak?
Yeah, please.
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to add that, maybe about 25, 26 years ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I was in a last stage situation in hospital. And that's when I learned about visualization from somebody else that was in there. And it was like the most important thing I could have learned at that point. I knew a little about meditation. I was only 18, but it was fantastic. And the weird thing is after I was told, at no point did I actually believe that I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is I had the major op. I mean, I was just seeing angels and light, and just having a great time. It was like, okay, I'm just going to accept that people are going to shower this attention on me. This is fantastic. This is what I need. Thank you very much. And yeah, if this massive tumor that they did lots of scans on and tests and other minor operations. After the major op, I came out in what was it called, critical care. I'm not sure what it would be in the States. And my mum was there, and she said, "Oh, they made a mistake. You don't have cancer." And I was like, "No, I know I had cancer. I know it was there. I'd been really, really ill for like about a year." And yeah, they all came to apologize afterwards when I was better enough. And they said, "No, you've just got pancreatitis now." And that's kind of, we must have made a mistake. We don't know how, but it just disappeared. I think they were afraid I was going to sue. So basically, yeah, I just kind of was like, it's okay, don't worry about it. It's not your fault. I kind of knew that what had happened in the hospital for me was the most healing process of being surrounded in love
Mm.
and that. And then on the flip side, 2 years ago, almost to the week, almost to the day, my late partner of 16 years passed away from cancer.
Mm. Mm.
So, and yet she had tried many things, and she'd been following Anita Moorjani and doing a lot of different stuff. But yeah, it just sometimes you can say it. It's like what you showed in that video from the X Factor. You know, you can say it and you can feel it, but if there is some part of us in the shadow, maybe that we haven't shone a light on enough, or if there is some deep wound from childhood, I think that can't quite be addressed in time, then yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm still going through the grieving process and understanding. Because she was an extremely intelligent woman and was using many different interesting and alternative protocols. But something switched and something changed for her, which meant that the healing around us didn't work. But what did work was, well, after she passed, actually, for her to go to a peaceful place. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to share that.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
May I say something?
Mm-hmm.
At first, I appreciate you sharing your story, the last speaker, but I haven't been in sound therapies, very long. So I'm a yoga therapist, and I'm working on adding sound therapeutics, and I've been a voice teacher most of my adult life. But I want to add to this. So many people have gone through this experience and maybe did not resolve those underlying things and still need help in that regard, but maybe they are not in touch with it. And I was thinking earlier about using, I know we want to get them towards peace, but maybe we actually need some dissonance for releasing and moving those energies through the body, especially when people are so cut off from their emotional body, and they need it needs to be allowed to move and to feel those things before they actually can get to a place of peace, because that other thing is still blocking their prana, blocking their energy. So not shying away necessarily from the crunchier sounds, from the discomfort, but guiding them through it and then letting that resolve with these more peaceful, harmonious intervals, Anyway, I don't want to discount the importance of dissonance and releasing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
That's good. Over the years, I've talked to many people about different techniques, and what I've found, and I've mentioned this in my book, is a technique of first doing harmonizing, which really allows you to connect to higher energies and more peace, to then do the second stage of clearing, which can get really intense and noisy, right? And it could be, right? It could be very intense. And then end with the actual harmonizing. So do a 3-step process. I found this good. Also, to be really careful if someone's really fragile, you want to skip the clearing process because they may not be able to handle any intense sounds at all. So it's always you always got to be really careful in that. But when people are super fragile, they can be. Sure, Thea. Yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sounds great.
Okay, yeah. I usually do Zoom with my laptop, but I only have my phone here. Well, thank you for this. This is really fascinating, and I'm appreciating the comments, particularly the last two. And it's I'm actually just had the third recurrence of breast cancer, and I had my surgery a few days ago. So it's really timely. Seems to be localized, which I'm really happy about. You know, I'm really thinking about this whole, you know, I guess more than ever, this whole kind of continuum between the things we can do, like our, you know, expressive modalities, and definitely I'm really want to pick up the sound healing more. I'm a musician, composer. I'm very interested in this. And the kind of, you know, the other sort of polarity, which is our dichotomy, the voice of the world that says, well, you can heal, and if you're not healed, you know, you haven't resolved these things. And I just want to say, I'm kind of working with that. Do you know what I mean? That sort of like in between point of, I guess it's really kind of any developmental thing. And something like cancer really brings that up. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do we, you know, navigate that territory and not slip
Not
into
make
these
it
black and
someone's
white?
fault.
Sorry?
Not make it someone's fault because they haven't resolved their issues.
Exactly. And
Uh-huh,
yet, how
right.
to like also go forward and say, well, I do want to work on this. You know, maybe there is this thing I haven't released. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really important. And you do have to be really careful because, you know, you can say, you know, it's because there is that sense behind that, oh, well, you manifest whatever you want, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but what's the point of that, right? I mean, goodness gracious, right? I mean, I mean, there is a point where you get to ultimately that it's all perfect. Really, it really is all perfect. It's like it's okay, right? It's all perfect.
Yeah.
It really is all perfect, right? That whatever, you know, is happening for whatever lessons you're going to get or not, or or whether it's just a toxin, right? It's some freaking toxin that's in the environment, right? I mean, who knows, right? I mean, goodness gracious, the way our environment is these days. So yeah, yeah. So that's tricky. It is tricky. Any thoughts on that? How to navigate that? Anybody else?
Well, just one thing. I think you said it earlier, David, in that sometimes it's just a matter of giving people who are ready to go peace, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really important because
Uh-huh.
I think, like what Thea was saying, if I understood it right, um, that we can put a lot of judgment on people whether they pass or fail the healing process.
Yeah.
We don't really know what life has in store for us and what we're here on earth to do necessarily. So it could be very well. I mean, like bring it back to my own experience with my partner. In the end, she took her own life, and she did that in order to allow others around her to continue their lives, and in order to take control of a situation that was really, really becoming impossible. And it took a lot of bravery, and she knew what she was doing for herself. Some people might call that failure. Some people might call that success, or what, I don't know. It's just, I think it's really important that we just allow things to be what they are. So kind of what you were saying is that if someone is ready to go, then it's our job to respect that. And if we're using sound to help the process, then I think we also said the word of like getting out of the way,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is so important to do, to kind of hold space,
Yeah,
to hold
nice.
space.
I was just thinking that because also a tricky area as to, you know, whether it's someone's time or not. I have this one intuitive who's in our classes who said she can see when it's someone's time, but boy, I sure don't know, right? When it's so, I always resort back to it's all taken care of. I don't know if it's their time or not, but it's all taken care of. It's all right? It's like if it's their time, it's their time. And it doesn't matter whether, so you really just go to that place of it's all perfect, right? That's where I resort to often. It's like, from the higher perspective, you know, her passing is actually helping us right now. Mm-hmm. So there's a woman that used to teach for me named Amrita, and she had breast cancer, and she was scheduled for surgery, and she went into the forest, went camping, and for a week she would focus and do a frequency sweep up and down with different frequencies to find the frequency of her tumor. And she said when she, so it was like, and when she got right on the frequency of the tumor, she could feel it heating up. And she said she went above and below it to break it up, a little higher and a little lower frequencies. And also had her friend play didgeridoo right on it. And then she went in for surgery, and they said, we got to do x-ray first. And they said, the x-ray machine must be broken. Right? We don't see the cancer. So she went back in, got a second x-ray, and they said, it's completely gone. Right? And it's interesting because there's multiple techniques for actually breaking up cancer cells. Right? The first technique is destructive resonance. Okay, destructive resonance is where you find the actual frequency of something, you turn the volume up and it explodes. It's exactly what they do with ultrasound on on kidney stones, right? And it's a technique that a lot of people are doing these days, and I'll share some of those in a minute. But so we'll come back to that. But the other technique that Amrita was doing was binaural beats. And that is where you actually find the frequency of her, she found the frequency of the tumor and went off pitch a little bit, right? And what happens is when you go off pitch, there is a frequency difference called a binaural beat that creates a beat frequency between the tumor and her voice. And that's a super low frequency, which happens to be like 1,300 feet in wavelength. It's really long wavelength, and it can easily break up a cancer cell. This is actually the way they break a wine glass. They don't use destructive resonance to break a wine glass with the voice, where they find the frequency of the wine glass and turn it up. Although you can do that with a electronic device, but it has to be way louder than the voice will go. There are YouTube videos of people breaking wine glasses with their voice, though. And what they do is they find the resonant frequency of the glass, and then they do a vibrato, which is going up and down, above and below that frequency of the wine glass, creating a binaural beat precisely like Amrita did, and it breaks the wine glass. That low frequency binaural beat is actually what's breaking the glass, right? And so that's a very interesting technique. And also I was working with this healer for years, and she would go inside my body and take out stuck energy. And one day I said, what the hell are you doing in there? And she says, well, I find the stuck frequency and I rock it, which means she was going up and down, above and below it, right? To break it up. So that's another technique that can be really cool that you could teach people or do yourself as well. The other is just dissonance, right? I mean, dissonance can break up dissonance, right? And that's just like an edgy sound, like a scream, ah, right? It can really be used to break up blockages, right? So the other, let's see, the other is destructive resonance. Any comments on these before I go ahead into it? Because I got a whole section on destructive resonance I want to show you.
Whenever I put my hands on people, I'm guided to put it wherever there's a blockage. And so my hand starts to vibrate like this. And the thumb goes wherever the blockage is in the body. And then my voice sends the energies and they go through my body and into the person from the source, and then break up if whatever they allow to go. And I see their past lives, I see their ancestral patterns, and traumas and things like that. And I just say with my words what I'm seeing. And as they let go, that's when my hand melts in. But it's the vibrations from the source that is doing it, and the sounds.
There's no better than any energy that comes from source. The second you connect to source, whatever vibration comes through you, that's the best. You know, if you can connect to source, source is way intelligent, knows precisely what frequencies anything needs, right? It's always the best. Okay, let's look at destructive resonance. This is, Thea, you have something? Okay. So
I can wait. Let's see until you finish this section.
Okay, cool. So with destructive resonance, there's a few things I want to share. First of all, let's see, there is the work from Fabian Maman. Fabian Maman used a like Kirlian photography to look at things, and actually in this one he's just using a regular microscope, and he was able, this is actually a cancer cell exploding in 14 minutes, right? And it's interesting because I know Fabian quite well, and I looked into detail as to what he was doing. And what he was doing is actually using regular tuning, equal tempered music, and he just played each of the notes, right? And he's got the frequencies of the notes, and actually made a CD of these frequencies and actually sell them, right? But so he's not really doing destructive resonance where he's finding the frequency of the cancer and exploding it. And I said, well, why is it exploding? And he said that cancer cells are really not fickle. He said they're really brittle, very brittle. And so when you apply frequencies to them, they break up easier than other cells. That's what he said. And so that's interesting that just playing any frequency to it could actually break it up, because these are not very auspicious frequencies at all, right? These are just the regular notes of a regular scale, not tuned to 440 and to equal tempered, which is what most people think you shouldn't even use. People think you should use just intonation, which is more based on nature. So that's an interesting perspective, right? Now, as far as destructive resonance, there's the work of, that you probably know about, of Anthony Holland. But Anthony is not using sound. He's using electromagnetic frequencies, exactly like Rife used, right? And so let me play a little bit of this for you if you haven't seen it.
First videos taken We showed these videos to our friends in the biology department. They said they hadn't seen anything quite like it. Seems to be a new phenomenon. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. This is a harmless organism, almost friendly, a little blepharisma. And normally they're very fast swimmers, but when you approach a frequency to which they are vulnerable, they begin to slow down, then they stop, and then they begin to disintegrate within about 3 minutes. So now we know we can destroy a microorganism, and the question comes up, but can you target a specific organism with a specific frequency? So in this next video, and here's my little frequency control box. So first we attack pancreatic cancer. Take a good look at this slide, because the next one will look quite different. After we treat these cells, they change their shape and size, and they begin to grow long, rope-like structures out the sides. They look something like antennas. I call them bioantennas for biological antennas. It's as if the cancer cells are trying to tune in to our signal. It also turns out this is the beginning of a process of destruction for cancer cells. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies. But killing a handful of leukemia cells is not enough for a patient. What kind of numbers can we do? In repeated controlled laboratory experiments, independently assayed by the 2 top experts, we killed an average of 25% to 42% of the leukemia cells, as high as 60%. They also determined that we slowed the growth rate of the cancer by as much as 65%, so a double effect. Now we attack ovarian cancer cells.
You know, that's like amazing. I would say 25 to what, like almost 50% of killing the cancer cells, right? But he's only using 2 frequencies. He's using around 100,000 hertz and the 11th harmonic, which is 11 times 100,000. So here's what's happening now is John Stuart Reed's been working with that device, the Raman spectroscopy, that will show all the frequencies of a cell in real time. So if you map all the frequencies of a cell and play them to it and turn the volume up, I would guarantee that you can destroy it 100% of the time. So mapping the entire harmonic structure of a cancer cell in real time, because that's the other problem, is cancer cells mutate and they're actually a little bit different frequencies. They're not all the same frequency, right? So you can then map them in real time and destroy them 100% of the time. So that's what we're looking at, doing some research. And I'll come back to that. I want to play one more video and then we'll have a little discussion here. Okay. Here's a company called Incytec, where they're also using ultrasound on tumors. But they're using, this is sound, this is not electromagnetics. Right? Check this out.
The way I see the future is building of the next generation operating room, replacing traditional surgery by non-invasive outpatient procedure. Insightec was established in January 1999. The company developed a breakthrough technology that in essence allows to treat human beings without cutting the body. We developed technology and systems that are capable to destroy targets deep inside the body, completely non-invasive. The unique part of Insightec is that all this procedure is being done under real-time monitoring and control of treatment outcome. So the user is capable to change treatment parameters on the fly, not in retrospect, and achieve the desired outcome.
The main part of the system is the transducer that transmits the ultrasound waves from this area here. This has 1,000 elements in it. Each one of them is electronically controlled by a complicated electronic system together with mechanics, software that supports it. Each one of those elements are transmitting the ultrasound waves, focusing at the treatment point.
The technology allows us to treat almost any tumor inside the body. We started with uterine fibroids. It's a huge problem. About 25% of the women will suffer from significant symptomatic effects. Today, the gold standard is hysterectomy. Patient is going through hysterectomy, then she will be hospitalized for a couple of days, let's say 3 to 5 at the hospital, sent home, and will recover weeks it'll take to recover. In our treatment, next day the patient is back to her life, work, family, whatever. It's a dramatic change for the women. Step 2 was turning into oncology. We selected a specific application which is metastatic bone tumor. It's a palliative treatment. The next one, which is in many ways the holy grail of this technology, is brain treatments. We are treating central nervous system diseases like Parkinson, like essential tremor. We've seen patients that for tens of years suffered from this disease, leaving the table immediately post-treatment with no tremor. We'll definitely look as a next step on brain tumors, prostate cancer, liver tumors, breast cancer, and so on and so on. Eventually, we see it as a next generation operating room, centralized service in the hospital. It's coming from the technology.
The main challenge in developing this narrow brain system was to be able to penetrate the skull, the non-uniform skull, and still get the focal point of the waves in the required spot in the brain. This was never done before by any company, and add to it the idea of having everything MRI guided makes it very complicated, involving so many disciplines and, I would say, excellency in science and technology.
In many ways, the system itself is a Star Trek system, because the notion that you could place someone on a table, look at him using MRI, and then 3 hours later, this guy is riding his bike back home, is something that, for at least in my generation, is still perceived as, guys, send me a postcard when this will be ready, okay? In reality, the system exists and doing it today. We have a lot of dreams, unlimited enough of amount of dreams, and almost everything you touch, there is a chance to do something different. Think about stroke. Think about the possibility that this technology will be able to liquefy clot in the brain really fast within these first 3 to 4.5 hours and get free flow back again to the brain and save the brain. Another different idea is targeted drug delivery. So we could generate significantly higher toxicities at the targeted volume while avoiding or sparing the whole body. So the way I see it and dream about it is doing huge change in medicine and helping millions of people globally.
I think there's going to be dramatic changes in the near future with a lot of this. I'm really excited with the idea of, I mean, the fact that we could explode a cancer cell 100% of the time now with this Raman device is quite amazing. And so at first I thought, really, is that the path I want to go down and help fund? And because I might die, right? You've got to be careful with the pharmaceutical companies. But then I talked to that woman that was working on cancer research at Kaiser in Oregon, and realized that we could actually have the hospitals actually head it up, right? So we do the research and work with the hospitals, and now it's not this alternative treatment, it's actual treatment that the hospitals would start using, right? Especially because Kaiser's got wanting to cut costs, right? And so I started looking at actually working with John Stewart Reed, who invented the CymaScope for cymatics, to actually do this, and he's ready to go. So we might have funding within the next year to set that whole company up and really find the frequency, combination of frequencies, and be able to destroy any cancer. And the person goes home in an hour, right? No side effects at all. That's the cool thing. But then the problem with that is we're not getting at the core reason why the cancer is there in the first place. There's a company that a friend of mine, actually, that I know, Ann Reynolds, she's part of her family owned the Reynolds company. She put together a whole project for cleaning up the toxins for kids of all the stuff that's in our houses and everything. And she's got like major people and tons of money to do it. So there's that avenue, right? But then, you know, if we can work on, you know, releasing the emotions or anything that's, you know, triggering the cancer in the first place, so it doesn't come back, because you can get rid of it, but it could easily come back, right? So I think we have to go further than just this. Although it's nice to get rid of the tumor just so you have more time to learn whatever lesson that cancer might be wanting to teach you. Any thoughts now?
David,
Yes.
do you use the Rife in your work, or more like just referring to it? What do you think about the Rife machine?
I know people have had cancer healed from it, and I know someone that his sister was the girlfriend of Rife when everything got ripped out, and he said that he was healing cancer left and right. You have to be careful with Rife, though, because, you know, it's not sound, so you don't use the sound frequencies. In fact, it's actually the frequencies they publish for Rife are modulation frequencies. So they'll take a carrier frequency of around 3 million hertz and go up and down, above and below that. And that's the frequency that's published, is that frequency going up and down, above and below it. So if it's 20 hertz, it goes 10 hertz above 3 million, 10 hertz below 3 million. So they're not meant to be sound frequencies. And then there's all this big controversy about different Rife boxes that are actually doing it the way he did it or not, which I don't even know all the details. So there's a lot of kind of fuzzy areas and considerations there. But it's, you know, it's really kind of crazy that we're not, that the hospitals aren't researching this, right? It's kind of bizarre, actually, that because the potential is so huge. Now, John Stewart Reed said that sound is actually better than electromagnetics, although you could do both, because electromagnetics causes heat that can cause other things to get destroyed. Although when you pulse it, it's not as bad. but still, sound doesn't cause heat like electromagnetics does. But, you know, even you could do three things. I mean, we should be doing, anytime there's cancer, you should go in and they should apply sound, electromagnetics, and light, right? I mean, it's kind of like crazy that there's not like a ton of money for this. And I think there is a ton of money that people would invest now because there's now avenues to get it into the mainstream through places like Kaiser. And I used to think that wasn't the case. I actually had a whole thing where um, Bill Nye, the Science Guys people came and interviewed me. And I went through all the science around sound, and they came out on Netflix, and it was horrible. It was like this show on how sound was just like a whack job, right? It was just, they called it tuning your wackometer or something like that, right? And then he said, oh, and Dave Gibson says he's curing cancer with sound. Well, I never said that. I said I know of people that are doing that. And so then that got sent out, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going down, right? The FDA is going to come after me, right? And then the next week, the head of integrative therapy at Kaiser calls up and said they want to do a sound on cancer and they want to do research with me. And I'm like, finally, I got where I don't have to worry about dying. I finally see a path forward where the hospitals are actually now doing this. Not only this, but the exact same technology, we could find the frequency of the virus and explode it 100% of the time, right? So what's really cool is now there's a lot of philanthropy groups that are making a lot of money that are really interested in things like this. And so we've got people that are ready to fund this completely. So at first I was hesitant, but now I'm starting to see a path that could be really cool. Any thoughts on this at all?
I have a question as a beginner to this field. Well, first, thank you. This has been so interesting and helpful. Earlier, you mentioned in different parts of the conversation the value of consonance, music that is consonant, I believe. Tell me if I'm incorrect. Music that is dissonant. Or it wasn't consonants, it was more like long tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, as a composer and scientist and healer, can you say more about this consonance and dissonance? I also don't want to get the group too much off the subject.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go into it briefly because it's kind of my whole thing in my book, especially, is, you know, you can look at it at different levels. You can look at the frequency level, you can look at the timbre level, which is a combination of frequencies. You can look at the musical interval level, the relationship between notes and frequencies, and you can look at the musical flow level, which includes rhythm and melody, right? So when you say consonance or dissonance, that can be actually within the musical interval level, or you could also say that's within the musical level as well. And you know, I mean, sometimes dissonance, as we were talking about, can be really good for breaking up stuck energy, but the way the body works is complete harmony. The body, when it's healthy, is not doing dissonance. Maybe some digestive juices are about it for dissonance, right? But mostly the body's like doing 100% harmony, right? So when you resonate harmony, that resonates into the body and will create more harmony in the body, which is the actual. So I think of it as the ultimate is smooth flow, like a song that's flowing smoothly through the body with no blockages is the definition of health. But that's the music level. The frequencies and the timbres, or combinations of frequencies, are the notes of the actual flow. So you want them to be in harmony and not fibrillating. So they're not doing stress, ah, or fear, ah, or anxiety, ah, or anger, ah. They're doing so they can receive and transmit the flow. When they are in humming consistently, they receive and transmit the flow. So you can work at multiple levels, right? I mean, we could work at, I was talking about working at the timbre level, the combination of frequencies of the actual cells to explode them. But maybe it's more importantly, we should be working at what system is that cancer cell in? How come there's not good flow in that system? Maybe it's the flow in that system that's causing the blockage, why that cancer cell is actually a problem. You know, I got appendicitis like years ago. Well, appendicitis is normally a blockage of flow of the large intestine. And that's why it has a problem, because there's no flow and it gets infected, right? So maybe we should look, or we could go to the extreme level. Like, let's look at the flow mentally for the person, emotionally for the person, and even spiritually, right? There's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual flow, right? That's where I see the hospital going, is ultimately looking, it's like, oh, you got this physical issue. Let's go into the emotional wing and see what might be behind that. Oh, let's go into the mental realm and do binaural beats and frequencies on the brain. Get that happening. Oh, let's go into the spiritual realm. Oh, you're not spiritual? Let's go out into the garden, into nature, right? And see the flow there. So it's interesting. Dissonance can be really good for breaking up things, but the body is consonance and harmony when it's healthy.
David, regarding this Inside Tech thing, where they go into the brain and they talked about tremors. I had a fellow come to have a session with me who filled out my form of what was going on, and he had been on drugs for tremors for several years. I don't know how many, I don't remember exactly, but anyway, he did not fill out that he had accidents, and I just kept feeling like he had some accidents. And so I asked him, and he said, well, no, I didn't have any driving accidents. And I said, well, no, any kind, any falls or whatever. And it turns out that when he was a kid, he had two things happen when he was riding on a bicycle. And one was he was riding and he accidentally hit his head on a beam, a metal beam that he went under or tried to pass, and his head rang like a bell. And then another one was riding on his bicycle, and he got too close to a swimming pool that was being built, and the dirt was all down in the level that it needed to be, and luckily there was no concrete yet. But anyway, he lost control of his bike and it flipped over, and he ended up landing down below with the bicycle on top of him. So when we cleared the trauma that was still held in his body at a subconscious level from those accidents, he got off the table and didn't have the tremors anymore, and he never did get them back.
Wow, cool.
So the fact that, and we worked on the brain because of, the head banging. And I mean, that was just a part of where my hands went, but also the emotions that were stuck around it and all of that. So I think it's awesome what they're doing.
Nice, nice. I've had tremors all my life. I drank a bottle of mercurochrome when I was one, which is the red stuff they used to put on wounds that has mercury in it. So I had mercury poisoning and had my stomach pumped when I was one. And in kindergarten, I couldn't hold my hands still at all. And doing sound healing, especially the sound table, has dramatically helped. I mean, I used to be terrified to go to dinner with anybody, right? Because I couldn't hold a glass still. I'm still scared. If anybody ever fills a glass up to the tippy top, I go into terror. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to lean over and sip it. Right? And now it's like just about completely gone, right? Because of the sound, and doing sound and toning and bowls and sound tables, all types of things.
David, can you
Mm-hmm.
say something about the sound table?
Yeah, it's a subwoofers built into a lounge or a massage table. If you go to Sound Lounge Center, we just launched our new site yesterday, soundloungecenter.com. You'll see all types of devices for there. We also have belts and little subwoofers you can put right on the body. But I don't actually I have that one frequency CD for cancer, but I actually don't have frequencies to play for cancer. I don't, I don't know if I believe in that one that maybe Maman came up with, but we do have it. Um, so, let's see, let me look at some of the notes here. Draw pictures of the cancer, have them talk to the inner physician, do a ritual and bury it. I'm talking about bija mantras. Tuning forks, guided meditations to take them to places where they release it. Ceremony can be really good. A ceremony. Oh, my next door neighbor, she's had cancer 4 times. And she said they had like a going away party for her uterus. The ceremony can be really good. We have all the different questions. So I will be posting all these notes on the, also the notes from our students from the last 10 years on the actual site on the Medical Sound Association website. Yeah, and ignite the imagination like that. Breathing exercises. It's always great to do breathing exercises with sound. So maybe some people need an activated sound bath to allow them to release the emotions. Yell like a banshee. Drums are always really good to beat a drum really intensely to move energy. Simple qigong. Feel a cocoon of light. Chakra balancing is always good. Well, any other ideas for treatments with sound?
Just coming home to oneself. That came up.
What's say again?
Just coming home to oneself.
How would you do that?
I think we human get lost from our source point. So I think what I know just a little about cancer patients. They when they survive, they get a new chance, and I think so they get the chance to do it differently and go home.
Nice.
Because they're almost gone. But that's my opinion.
Of course, what I do, and also Jeffrey Thompson does, is just get them back into their natural rhythm, where we play each of the 12 notes and find out which note is yours. And we can even do binaural beats in delta, theta, alpha, and beta to get you back to your natural rhythm. And so I really like that as well, to get people back to themselves.
Yeah.
May I say something about that?
Sure.
Sort of about that. There's a doctor, I don't think he's on the planet anymore, but Mitchell Gaynor, I think his name is.
Gaynor. I'll tell you my story about Mitchell in a second.
Okay, so in oncology, but so this idea of dissonance, if the cancer's in the body, there's dissonance at some kosha body, some layer of mental, emotional, spiritual, one of these layers of being besides the physical manifestation of cancer. And we're using coherent sound, such as a crystal bowl or whatever it is. It may not be that person's voice because of this blockage, but we're using a coherent sound to remind the being of their innate wholeness already. At the same time, they're finding their song. So I don't remember exactly, it's been a while since I read his book, but I think he called it soul song, helping his patients find their soul song and using that kind of as their own little chant while they were playing coherent sound with the aid of an instrument for themselves, which could also be done in a therapy session, but they could go home with that. Yes, that one, sound medicine. No, that's not it. Sound healing. Yes, I see it on the screen.
This is his last one before he died.
Okay, I didn't read that one yet. But anyway, so we're pairing, like the coherence of this bowl is working to rub up against that blockage in the body, creating the dissonance that then is allowed to pass through the voice. So it's just really neat what we could do to address the other layers of being that, these machines, these new devices are exciting, but you're right. Like they're not addressing some of these other layers of being that are what got the person there in the first place, perhaps, and are the real lesson. So anyway, I think it's important to pair both of those aspects together. They're using their own voice or their own hands or whatever to pass that energy through, but we're also using the aid of these instruments or the binaural beats or whatever to bring coherence, remind us of the wholeness that's already there at some level of being.
Nice. Yeah, it's so Mitchell was the keynote at our conference about 5 years ago, and the day before the conference he called and said, "Oh, I've got a stomach bug, it's really bad, I'm gonna have to cancel." And then the day after the conference his secretary called and said that he had died. I just interviewed him on the radio, and the official word was that he committed suicide. And I had just interviewed him, and he had said, I just love what I'm doing, right? I love my job, right? And so there's this whole conspiracy thing that, because he'd written a book on cancer and sound and alternative therapy, that they took him out, right? But this, for what it's worth, this intuitive said that it was actually his wife's boyfriend that took him out, but who knows, right? But yeah, he had the gene therapy plan. He was looking at using sound for epigenetics to change the genes in the body and make you more healthy. Basically how it works, right? It's very, very cool. Okay. See if I got anything else. I think that's about all I have. See if I missed anything. So yeah, if anybody's interested in, or knows anybody that might be interested in working really directly on the research around this, let me know, because very serious science, right? And then also, if you come across any other ideas, you can let me know. Email me at david@soundhealingcenter.com.
Do the researchers need to have a scientific background?
I'm sorry?
Would it be important that the researchers have a scientific background, or what kind of background would you imagine?
Yeah, for the research where we're actually finding the frequency of the cells, yeah, that should definitely be around science. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, what kind of scientific background?
clinical research would be the best.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, clinical research process. Yeah. Well, probably John Reed's probably going to be heading it up in England, in London, where he lives. But we might have some people working here as well.
David, does John currently have the Raman spectroscopy?
No, he doesn't. He just worked with somebody that had it. And at that point, it was like about 7 or 8 years, or maybe 10 years ago, and it was like $1 million. But now he thinks it's going to be way cheaper. So, and also with our funding, I don't think it'll matter. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's so much potential there, right? I mean, because you could
Oh
even
my God.
like what's the frequency of like T cells and B cells,
Oh my God.
and
It's
stimulate
really,
that.
it's just huge. Yeah, it could actually turn into like this massive company. But what's so amazing about it is financially, to be able to get it funded. I mean, we don't even have to use philanthropy. People, because we're talking, this could make billions of dollars, right?
Right.
And really help people dramatically, right? So could be really cool. Let me tell you, for those of you who haven't been in a previous meeting, the download I got that we're looking at doing. I woke up a few months ago and my guide said, get up 4 in the morning. We need to figure out how to heal all the diseases in the world. I'm like, okay. Right. And so they said, we need to know the musical interval relationship between the heart, brain, and breath when you're in the zone. And that would be heart coherence, right? Could be peace or oneness. But so I immediately called up Rowan McCready at HeartMath, and he sent me 15 readouts of people in the zone in heart coherence when they're running love for the heart, brain, and breath. And so in order to find the musical interval relationship, we'll have to average out the heart rate because it goes up and down, right? But it's a smooth up and down. So it should be pretty easy to figure out the interval relationship of the rhythm of the heart in relation to the brain and breath, which are more stable when you're in the zone. And then we can take that musical interval relationships and play those rhythms and relationships of the rhythms to a person to get them in the zone. Then we octavize it up, which means double the frequency until it becomes a chord. And then we got the chord for the person as well. But then they said we should actually know the melody and rhythm of each of the 11 systems. And so the rhythm of each of the 11 systems medically in the body will be easy because it's going to be in direct relationship to the heart, brain, and breath, right? It's not going to be like a really unusual interval. It's probably going to be double, which is an octave, or triple, which is an octave, and or quadruple. And so it's going to be in direct relation. So the rhythm should be pretty easy. But then we need to find out the notes of the nodes within each of the 11 systems. In the meridian, the nodes are the acupuncture points. So when energy flows through a meridian, it's playing a song, right? It's playing, each acupuncture point is an actual frequency, and it's playing at a specific rhythm. So it's playing a melody, bam, 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 through the meridian. So we need to know the nodes. So we've hooked up with some doctors, and the woman that works on cancer in Oregon, she actually worked with an acupuncturist as well, who's a medical doctor. So we'll be able to figure out a way of figuring out the actual nodes in each of the 11 systems. But then we can use the Raman device from John Stuart Reid to find the combination of frequencies within each node, right? Because it shows the entire harmonic spectrum. So we can take that harmonic series, or whatever frequencies we get for each cell, and look for the fundamental, which is mathematically easy to find, which will be the main note of all those frequencies. And now we know not only the note, but we know the timbre of each cell, the tonality to use. And so now we've got the notes of the melody and the tonality, and we've got the rhythm of the melody for each of the 11 systems. So then we use electrodes, microcurrents, infrared light, needles with frequencies in them, and we pulse that perfect flow through the body, precisely tuned to that person's own 11 systems. So we're going to have 11 songs for you. It'll be really, really interesting to see how those 11 songs interrelate. I can't wait to play my 11 songs at the same time. See what happens, right? And so now we can precisely play your healthy flow. This is when you're in the zone, right? So we're tuning it when you're in the zone. So we can play that through your body and heal all the diseases in the world. And then
wow, David, that sounds incredible. I'm just, okay, my mind is kind of blown a little bit by all of this, which is a good thing. I guess one question I've got is, so when you find out the frequencies of the cell of a person, and then you're able to treat it, you know, the note, the tonality, the rhythm, etc. But we're really talking, I take it, about in like a snapshot in that moment, because our vibrations will change the next day and in the next month, and things will alter. Is that right?
That's an interesting question. I believe quite strongly, to be proven, that the frequencies might change, but the actual musical interval relationships of the parts will not change. Of course, you're going to be a different person, right? So that means the song melodies could be pretty stable. Maybe even the songs flow through the different intervals differently day to day. But I think the intervals, the musical interval relationships of the parts is going to be very stable. particularly when you're in the zone, right? It was funny, I was just talking to a psychic who said, you need to find this out when they're young, right? To get that imprint when they're young before there's other stuff. And even when they're young, there's still imprints from past lives maybe, right? But it would be better. And then, yeah, so I've thought about it because someone else has said the exact same thing. And because we know the frequencies are different. And okay, so here's another thought about it. Maybe you can think of it as a chord progression. From in the morning, we have a certain chord progression playing through, right? And then in the afternoon, and even in India, all the different ragas are actually tuned to the different times of the day, even the different seasons. So maybe there's a different chord progression that will go through in the morning when, before you've eaten. And so there are a little bit different. So it could get very complex where that's what we're looking at is what's your song in the morning? Oh, your song is off more in the morning and then the afternoon from what it should be for you, for your template of perfection. And then, go ahead.
No, please.
And then it's like my friend who teaches for us, Jamie Liu, she's now intuitively finding people's soul songs, right? And it's be really interesting to compare the songs that she's finding, or anybody finds for themselves, because people often find their own soul songs. Compare that to the songs that are pulsing through the 11 systems.
Yeah. I guess I guess my question still is that wouldn't the notes be a bit different? Okay, the intervals are the same, but the notes could be different over time. So people might then need to come back and have a recomposed set of 11 songs for themselves, for example, in a half a year or a year or when.
I really think there's a template of perfection, of harmony in the body that is there. And I'm coming to think that it's even the same for everybody, right? Now, there's definitely going to be variations within. So it depends at what level you look. Or, you can look at the level of what's going on with you today, right? But I think there's a template of perfection, of harmony for the human system.
Yeah, closer to the essence of.
Right. So, of course, you got wayward songs going on all the time, right? It's like, okay, there goes another one, right? But that template of perfection, I'm really starting to believe it's really set. And maybe there's 1,000 of them, or, for different cultures. Maybe there's, even, 10,000, but maybe there's only 5, right? When you look at it. And so if you figure out all of the notes of the whole system, those notes, I don't think notes change very often. That's cancer. When a note changes, that's cancer. It goes to a different type of cell. When a cell changes its frequency, it's a different type of cell. What happens in the body more is things kind of just start fibrillating. They start buzzing instead of humming, instead of going to different notes, right? I think the body doesn't change notes because then you would be a different body, right? And there's little pieces that probably change here and there, little tiny things. But if something major changes, that's like really major. The body is kind of set. That's what I believe to be, to be proven, right?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense to me on a heart level too. I just wanted to ask a quick question also about the Raman I'm not going to be able to pronounce it.
I say it different ways. Spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy. That one. Are you envisaging? I'm imagining this is a very, very expensive machine from what someone said earlier. Do you envisage that this would be used solely in hospitals or big institutions, or is it something that like healers and sound healers, etc., could be utilizing in their practices and their independent practices.
That's funny. I haven't thought about it too much, you know. It's you know, I've been thinking about in hospitals more than anything, but I would like to have one in my bedroom. Right? Right? I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, it could be the all different types of versions. We can have a hug here, even though we gotta. So yeah, it's interesting because it could be, God, you know, it's so interesting when I start thinking about it. I mean, what Jackie was saying earlier, this is gonna, this is so massive. We're not just talking about cancer. We're talking about every disease there is. The actual flow. Okay, what's the song of that disease? Oh, there's there's the note, or the actual tempo's off. Let's get that humming back to its flow for that person. I mean, every single disease we're talking about. We're talking a whole paradigm shift of medicine here when you really focus on it. And then to have it spill over into the emotional and mental and even spiritual realm.
Well, I think this is what fascinates me about the Raman spectroscopy is I think you could do an experiment that possibly determines whether your thoughts and emotions actually change the frequency of your cells.
Ooh, nice.
Right? And then that would pretty much open the door for then being able to say some of these diseases really come from your mental and emotional body.
I mean, that's a lot of work that HeartMath is doing already. But you know, if we can say, look, okay, let's track how many times you go into fear, or how many times you go into anxiety per day, and then show precisely what the anxiety is doing as far as the frequencies and songs in each of the systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yep.
I have a question.
I get a little overwhelmed with it, but I just will have other people. It's going to be like a massive team of people working on this, I think. Go ahead.
I have a question about sound. My issues right now are that my body has toxins that it can't get rid of. And so I'm using like an ion foot bath to help move the lymph and get it out. So if we do this massive change in the body with sound, can we still, I mean, how is the body releasing that? Is it just vibrating out because we are light, but is it being stored somewhere so that we still have to release it through your urination or
you could die from
whatever,
from the healing crisis, actually. Right?
But you just vibrate out into light, right?
Right. Well, yeah, no, I think this is actually a problem. There's a few problems that it's interesting when you look at it. I think that's actually a real problem because, you know, I know when I get really mellow over a long period of time, my body goes, party time, let's detox, right? And I can almost get sick, right? It's like whatever I've been holding. So there's definitely has to be this component of being able to deal with those toxins releasing through your intestines or whatever, right? So there's that component. However, you know, some people have said, okay, if you break up those cancer cells, you're going to have to detox then. Well, I know people that have gotten sound with actual fourth stage cancer and completely cured, and there was zero detox. Zero detox, right? So that's not necessarily true that the cancer cells create toxins when they die. In fact, it doesn't make sense to me. If they're dead, they're not doing anything, right? They're just little pieces, right? So, but yeah, I think detox. Now, also, this reminds me of another area because, you know, it's like I was just talking to this intuitive about actually finding the frequency of the mental body to allow soul energy to come into the whole physical body more. And this is a real problem with a lot of kids that were born in the last 10 years. They have huge amount of soul energy, but their bodies were not ready to handle it. So they've gone into autism and ADD and such, but now that's changing. And so I started looking at it. And but you have to be careful when you start transmuting things like pineal glands and pituitary glands with frequencies, because sometimes people aren't ready. So there are limits where we have to watch out for in certain areas, as far as whether people can handle. It's like, can you handle being perfectly healthy and happy and enlightened? A lot of people can't. Their system can't handle it. Isn't that amazing?
David, I'd like to talk about a couple of things that you're talking about here. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, I got trained on a machine called the Papimi machine that was helping to heal people worldwide of all kinds of diseases. It was invented by Dr. Pappas from Greece. He's a physicist and something else. He had 2 doctorates, and he invented this machine that was like lightning in a box, and it would pulse this magnetic field around you, and it would heal people of all kinds of things. And unfortunately, the guy in California who was the representative for the US got killed off suddenly, and it got outlawed in the United States. But it was healing people of cancer and other things, which is why I wanted to learn it. But what he talked about, he said, healthy cells vibrate at 72 millivolts a second. Disease sets in at 58 millivolts a second. And so below 58 millivolts a second is disease. And so cancer and tumors are down at 20 and 28. So when I got diagnosed with this about a month and a half ago, I woke up the next morning going, oh, my millivolts are way low and I need to raise them, because I also heard this lecture by a biologist or biochemist who was looking in his microscope at a healthy cell. And he said suddenly it became a diseased cell, and he witnessed it shift its frequency and become a diseased cell in that moment. And so I've been trying to work on, raising the millivolts up. And I Googled online and I really couldn't find much of anything about millivolts. But that is what he taught. So I wanted to share that with you about, the scale of health and disease. And also when I focused on my tumor, I was focusing on the original pattern of health that we were all created with, as one of the things that I was focusing on. And I was focusing on also the cells in the tumor shifting frequency and just becoming healthy. In other words, dissolving the tumor. So that's one of the things that I wanted to share. And then there's also a book, and I've just started doing the program actually, a book called Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer. And it's written about this Ayurvedic doctor named Dr. Naram. And there's a recipe in the book for what they call moon bean soup. It's mung beans, but they call it moong, M-O-O-N-G. And that's taking toxins out of people. And I actually started doing it, and it made a huge difference in 9 days.
Wow. Cool.
How I felt, I didn't get sick or anything. So I wanted to share those 2 things.
Cool. Thank you. There's so many different devices now coming out. I mean, everybody's talking about the med bed that's supposed to do an assessment and figure out precisely what's going on with you. Ancient Secrets of the Master Healer. So, and then there's also the Healy, and then there's the Nutrienergetics, there's the QXCI, there's like all these different, devices that are like measuring all different things electromagnetically and with quantum numbers through the body. But here's what's really interesting, and even what you were talking about, is everybody's talking about frequency and no one's talking about flow. And really, flow is the whole deal. These frequencies and combinations of frequencies and even the intervals are just components of a smooth flow through the system. So when you say they're like giving you a certain millivolts, it's like, well, wait a second. It's really the flow from one millivolt to another in different parts of the body. It's electricity flowing through the system that's actually the deal. And you can work at, it's not wrong to work at the frequency level. That's cool because then it will help receive and transmit the flow. But, these devices that everybody's coming up with, I'm thinking, you're only working with part of the possibilities, right? Let's work with a smooth musical flow as well as the frequencies and work at it, getting flow through the whole system as opposed to one spot, right? So that's the difference in the research that I'm really interested in. Because I think the body is all of these at once.
David, have you heard of the Biocom?
No.
Or the Bicom machine? It's made in Germany, and I know a lady here that uses one. She runs a natural pet food store, and she has a little shop in the back where she does Bicom. She can do it on people, dogs, cats. She's done it on my horses and my dogs, and it basically uses electromagnetic frequencies. I don't know how they've gotten their information and how it actually I don't understand how it works because it's not easy to find information on how they've come to these conclusions and these frequencies. But it basically recognizes frequencies in the body that are missing for specific, organs, all the organs, and including skin. And it also can go into emotional issues, trauma, things like that. And then it basically puts those frequencies that are missing back in the body. And it is fascinating. It has helped. I know some people that go to it frequently. It's done amazing things on my horses. She did my horse once, and he had a knee injury that was recovered, but there was still like a small amount of inflammation there, but you couldn't see it. If you looked at his knee, you wouldn't know it was there, right? And so she goes through the whole body and says everything is fine. We know he's allergic to alfalfa. And the machine was able to basically pick up on the allergy of alfalfa. And then all of a sudden she goes, what happened to his left knee? And I'm like, you're kidding me. I said he got a puncture wound there. And he was on antibiotics for about 10 days. And she goes, oh yeah. She says, it's showing me that there's inflammation in the left knee. So, I mean, it was phenomenal. And she did my dogs as well. And she's worked on a friend of mine that's got severe back problems. And it's the only thing that's helped him. Even like aside from epidurals and narcotics and I mean you name it, he's had it. But it's a really interesting machine, worth looking into. I'm trying to pick her brain a little bit more and see if she can give me more information on what their science is behind it. Because clearly they've been able to find these frequencies, and I'm not sure how.
Yeah, it's so. I guess so. I don't trust anybody, I mean, when things really work like that, they're obviously doing something. I had someone who called me a couple of weeks ago and they said, I've got the solution to heal every disease in the world. And I said, well, what are you doing? And after about a week of conversations over email, I still didn't have a clue what she was doing, right? And it's cool, and they can be very cool, but is it going to work for, what are the limits? I mean, and like what percentage of people did it heal when you did this? I mean, does it heal this disease, that disease? What are the limits of disease? I mean, why and why? And that's the problem with all this proprietary stuff. No one's going to tell you. No one's going to say, oh, it sucks for this. It's a miracle for this, but it sucks for this, right? Because their marketing team's not going to let them say that, right? And then there's no think tank as to how it all works in the first place. Are you actually using musical flow? Oh, you are using musical flow. Okay, what music are you using, right? Through that system so it works, It's because I mean, it's like the whole. That's why I'm like excited about just this group, is to being able to actually go to the next level of like, okay, what is everybody doing? Share it, share it so we can then advance it. So we're getting to 100% resolution of everything all the time.
Yeah, I agree. The whole proprietary science drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It's not serving anyone.
Right, right. Cool. I see the potential is really getting exciting. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we end? Down. Okay.
Thank you. I always want to say thank you. You have so much information. It's a delight to be on here.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny. I know nothing. I mean, it's like God hasn't shared anything. I mean, it's like, okay, I was on the line with this psychic last week, and she's like, "You're not really finding the frequency of the soul. You're finding the frequency of the silence in the body before the soul comes in. And the way you find the frequency of the soul is actually through looking through the eyes." I'm like, how can we measure that without being intuitive, right? And it's like, and how does the soul actually manifest in the body physically, mentally, emotionally, which Alice Bailey talks about. I mean, it's like, how do emotions really work as far as physiologically, you know? I mean, it's like we know nothing. We really know nothing about how God has put this whole thing together. It's just like, it's really just unbelievable how little we know. Thank you, though, for that. Okay, let's do a meditation for all people that are suffering with cancer and the energy around it. So let's send energy for healing, but also send energy of love and light to all those on the planet that are suffering in this area. Go ahead and unmute and do any sound. May all be at peace, and it's okay. Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, David. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Love to everybody.
Thank you.